Daryl says, just wondering what the next big thing could be. What are you referring to? There's a lot of things to talk about. What's the next big thing in what specifically? In speakers, in amplifiers, in DSP, in video, projectors, TVs, like what? What specifically? Um, Daryl says, yes, everything is just getting more, not different. More channels, more pixels, more faster, more expensive. Okay. And you know what? That kind of leads into one of the topics I had, which is, have you guys been seeing these high powered Class D amps, like Class D mono blocks from Fosi? They sent me 6 of them, the V3 monos. And, I've been hearing, when Aaron reviewed one, it overheated. And, during his testing. And then I saw, showed up on my feed that New Record Day, Ron from New Record Day, I guess he was testing some, and that one overheated. So when they asked me to review these, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to deal with that. So I was going to test it with, kind of like in a home theater situation, something kind of an odd situation. And, I just plugged it in and I noticed like, man, these get pretty warm. And so I talked to my buddy who knows a lot about amplifiers because he makes a ton and he's my go-to guy when it comes to this stuff. And I said, what's up with these high powered Class D amps, and he was just like, he basically told me, he gave me a lot of information about how heat works, of course. So you want to dissipate the heat away from the chip. And usually what that means is you need a lot of surface area, metal surface area, to dissipate heat away. You typically want a lot of air around it just because the air, is going to heat up. But the smaller the space, the more that heat will just build up in that small space versus the same thing in a large case. It'll heat up, but at least it has area for it to dissipate out. And so you want air inside, and then you want a lot of air running and cooling off the surface area that is dissipating the heat. And so a lot of these Class D amps are passive, so they don't have fans at all. They're just relying on the case itself to dissipate the heat. And when you're talking about, I think they're putting out 240 watts is their claim. Like, they're huge. The power bricks on these things are huge. They're like this. The amp is like this big and like this wide. And the power brick is like this big and like that wide. So a lot of power going through these things. And I don't know if that's what's causing the overheating. But again, this is for you. You know who you are. The guy who's telling me about all this stuff. He's telling me about, well, first I got to rewind and say the reason I still said yes to these guys was because this thing has a standby mode, right? Because I noticed that the Fosi, what are those ZA3s that I had, they would always run hot even if everything was off, right? So they would stay on, no sound was coming through them, but they were still running hot. And I asked him, what's up with that? And he talked to me about the idle wattage or quiescent wattage, meaning like how much it's drawing when nothing's going through it. It's still pulling some power and enough power so that they're generating heat, And so just some things I'm learning about with these things. And it kind of got me thinking, why do people feel the need to have 240 watts running through their main speakers? Like, I get it if you're running a 2-channel setup. Maybe that's who their target market is with these mono blocks. But for a home theater, do you guys think that you're using anywhere close to 240 watts for your main speakers? You're crossing them over at, let's say, 80 watts. My opinion is that your subs are handling pretty much everything. Right? Your subs are doing all the work. Right? And your main speakers, I think if you had a way to measure them, I don't have a direct way to measure how much power I'm drawing from all my main speakers, but I think you'd be surprised. I think you'd laugh at how little wattage you're actually using on those speakers. I would probably guess if you had 60 watts, 50 watts, I think that you'd be fine. So in most home theater situations, right? I think 100 watts for sure would be fine, but 240, that's just a lot. Make sure to check out our audio-only version of the podcast at anchor.fm/Daily HiFi, or just go to your favorite podcasting service and search for Daily HiFi.